Every Man an Enemy by W. Howard Baker, Chapter 11. God rest you, merry gentlemen, sang the village choir, and Blake added his strong baritone to the rest. Let nothing you dismay, boomed Arthur Kirby, standing beside the detective. And yet both men were dismayed on this Christmas morning. Kirby had arrived early, very early indeed. Work had kept him busy in London up until the very last moment on Christmas Eve, so he hadn't been able to travel down to Marlow with the other guests. Instead, his car being temporarily out of order, he'd come by taxi. A London taxi, chartered from Fleet Street, with an air of sublime indifference to the effect it would have on his expense account. And he had arrived at John Bovis's house at 6 in the morning. He had soon awakened Blake, of course. Kirby was out of bed at that hour in the morning so very infrequently that he had had to share the dawn chorus with somebody. And after awakening Blake and Tinker and distributing presents, he had gone on to rouse the other guests. That was when it had been discovered that Jimmy Mackintosh hadn't returned from setting Dr. Carlton on the right road to Henley the previous evening. That was when it was seen that his bed hadn't been slept in. Of course, Blake argued, all the way along the snow-covered path to the village church and morning service. Of course that doesn't mean that something must have happened to him. He knows the district, he probably has friends here. But it's odd that two of them should have vanished, said Kirby, first Lavinia Webb and now Mackintosh, and both have gone off without so much as a toothbrush. There may be some simple explanation, Blake said. This was Christmas morning, merry Christmas morning, and nothing should be allowed to spoil it. A simple explanation of both disappearances? Kirby sounded doubtful. Possibly, Blake said firmly. Really, Splash, you spend all your life looking for sinister implications. His tone was vehement. Too vehement. Tinker looked at him sidelong. Even as he spoke the words, Blake was in fact wondering who he was really trying to convince, Kirby or himself. The dining table was a plain white linen sparkling with rich glass and silverware and heavy with food. There were 2 deliciously browned turkeys, chicken, a leg of roast pork, sausages, sauté potatoes, sprouts, and savoury stuffings. There was enough wine and bottled beer to float a small dinghy. All around the table there was laughter and good fellowship. Glasses were filled and emptied with rapidity. Plump and succulent birds were swiftly reduced to the bare-bones skeletons. Everyone present was determined to have a jolly good time. Only very occasionally did the laughter have a hollow ring. This was when eyes brimming over with bonhomie touched on 2 vacant places at the groaning table, Jimmy Mackintosh's place and Lavinia Webb's. The wine went on its rounds again. The pudding was brought in, burning and bubbling with brandy. Prout had fierce indigestion, but he didn't mind. This was worth it. Millie cleared her plate of turkey and licked it clean. Afterwards, there were cigars and cigarettes, mince pies and bonbons. Everyone wore a paper hat, even Millie. She was too much full of good food, much too replete with stolen wine, much too sleepy to protest. Gradually, the others began to feel sleepy too. The warmth, the wine, the good food, the beer, these things coupled with the fact that Kirby had roused them all early, sapped the guests' vitality. One by one they stretched and yawned. Think I'll lie down for a bit. One by one they padded off down the hall to climb the broad, shallow stairs to their respective rooms. Soon, only Harvey Innes and Blake remained downstairs, Innes doing some typing on Carla Scott's portable without her permission, and Blake dozing fitfully in a deep chair by the log fire in the lounge. Harvey Innes typed a paragraph and looked at it. He considered it for a long time. He looked very thoughtful. It was 5 minutes past 3. He released the paper bail and slid out the typewritten sheet he had been working on to examine it even more closely. And then he jumped practically out of his skin. That same moment he was jerked upright, everyone in the house was jerked upright by a horrible, shrill, and bubbling scream. See you tomorrow.